How do you recover from owing banks over 200 billion naira in indebtedness and still come out stronger, grow a business, became a multi-billionaire? Jesus, this is the book I'm going to be talking to you about today. It's called Making It Big by Femi Otedola. He's the current chairman of First Bank Old Co. Great book. His early years was that, he started his life by he's always had this business thing in him. When people come to visit their house in Lagos, Nigeria, in Victoria Island, he used to cut the nails of his father's visitors for a fee. So his hustling didn't start today. He said, the process of cutting nails taught me things like having a nose for opportunity, creating value, and getting rewarded. And do not forget that stooping to conquer is a time-tested principle. I bent down to cut nails, but I did not stand up empty-handed. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was powerful. So let's get into further of his life. You said, so he started now working for his father in his father's printing press business in Lagos, Nigeria, in the mainland. Then he told his dad that he struck a deal with the dad. He told the dad, like, you know what? I told him I wanted to become a sales consultant for his press. He said he would pay me a commission of between 10 to 15%. I invested my money in buying cars for sales and marketing. He said we could hardly keep up with the demand. Our unique selling point was quality. We were also on time with job delivery, healthy competition, and an healthy competition with academic press. It just portrays the fact that sales and marketing is everything. It is actually everything in business, really. So that's how I started. Next, he now started a company called Centerforce. It's a financial service company. They give loans to smaller companies. With just 2 employees. He started a company with just 2 employees. And soon, he had 20 employees. The company started with just 10 million, grew to more than 100 million, and loan repayment rate was over 90%. My goodness, man, this guy, this book is something else. Then he entered the petroleum industry of supplying diesel. All right, so sometime in 1999, I think so, there were weeks of darkness in Nigeria, especially in the Ikeja area. And he said, I knew instinctively that I could do this better. I could clean it up and give it a good image. So people were supplying diesel to people in their houses, but customer service was terrible. It was terrible. In fact, he spoke about an experience whereby one day he got back home from work because he was working. His office was in the mainland, in the island, and he was living in Ikeja then. He was living in a street named after his father, Sir Michael Otedola. And he got back home and there was no diesel at home in his house. And his family was in darkness. This guy is so family oriented. He took his family to Sheraton Hotel to stay while he went out to sort out how to get diesel, so that they can have power in their house to run their generator on air condition and give his family a great life. You will actually know a man that is great from the way he treats his family. It was from that experience. And when they came to supply the diesel for him, the supply experience was terrible. The tank was dirty, the tank was leaky, and a house that he spent about 11 million naira to build, they wanted to mess it up with, dirty diesel all over the place. He said when they supplied the diesel for him and the diesel truck was leaving, he said to himself, you know what? I can do this thing better. Spotting opportunities. He said, I can do this thing better. Then he started his own diesel distribution company called Xenon Petroleum and Gas. It was registered in 1999. He said he made his first $1 million from that business. And guess what? 4 years later, he made his first $1 billion from that business called Xenon Petroleum and Gas. He spotted an opportunity. I always tell people all the time that the obstacle is the way. If there was no light shortage in Nigeria as at that time, there's no way Xenon Petroleum would have been birthed. So the challenges that we go through is some embedded in those challenges are the opportunities that will take our lives and our businesses to the next level. Next lesson I learned from the book is doing things that don't scale. I think it was Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator, that said that most founders that have gone up to do big things in their lives, they always do things that do not scale at first. So you got to do things that don't scale. How did Femi Otedola do things that don't scale? I mean, you remember his father was a former governor of Lagos State. So when he bought his trucks to start delivering diesel to houses and organizations, what did he do? He said, to prosper, accept that nothing is beneath you. I went around pushing diesel. He said when he got his truck, I think the name of the truck driver was Samson, yeah? He would sit down next to his truck driver, a former governor's child, and they'll be delivering the diesel from house to house, from office to office. My goodness. He said, I didn't feel that selling diesel was beneath me. My God. And this is a lesson for some entrepreneurs listening to me right now. Some people are even ashamed to sell what they produce. They are ashamed to talk about their business because they feel that their business is beneath them. Some of you sell clothes. You can't even talk about the clothes that you sell on social media. I mean, when this thing was going on, there was no social media. It was going around. He said he used to even jokingly say that when he goes to nightclub in the evenings, his friends would tell him that, are you here to sell this? Next thing I learned from the book is that ask for help, then sacrifice. Here's a quote. He said that he asked his father for a loan. I think, was it $250,000 or 250? 250,000 something. It was a lot of money at a 1% interest rate, a one-digit interest rate with a 5-year note. His father gave him the loan. What a great father! What a great father! What a great father! What a great father! Look at what the man has become today. Guess what this guy did? As the business was expanding and growing, what did he do? He said, I sold my house for 40 million naira. Then we moved from the beautiful mansion he had built in Ikeja to a rented 4-bedroom house in Victoria Island. My goodness. I think it was Charlie Munger that said that when you discover that the odds are in your favor, bet heavily. He knew that the odds in the petroleum industry was in his favor. What did he do? He bet heavily. He sold his house for 40 million naira and invested everything into his business. Remember, he built that house for less than 11 million naira. So, property is a very good asset class. Property is a very, very good asset class. When you have challenge, that's when you know how important property is. I remember a client of mine, I was doing sales coaching for his company for a year. So I do this retainers. Companies leave me on, and then I do sales trainings for them. My father, I did a sales training for a company. One of their salesperson did $50 million in sales in 1 year. In fact, they just renewed the contract for me to come back and do more sales training for them. All right. So he sold, and this guy told me that, Paul Fo, before you turn 50, I just turned 50. He said, every year, if you can afford it, buy a piece of property, buy land somewhere. He said, because when two things happen, he said, number one, the value of the land will go up. And when you need money, you can liquidate that asset and use it. So when I was reading this, I just realized what my client was advising me on. It was really, really spot on. But the other thing that happened about this was that the power of location. The power of location. Here's what Femi said. He said, place yourself close to those with influence and capital. Many Nigerian banks had their headquarters or head offices in Victoria Island. Victoria Island, for those of you who are not Nigerians, the posh areas where the rich and the 1% live and where their HQs are. He said many Nigerian banks had their headquarters in Victoria Island. Location is critical to corporate packaging. So when he moved his family from Ikeja to a rented apartment in Victoria Island, it changed his location. The moment he changed his location, his life and his business began to change. I am a big advocate of traveling. And you will see how traveling actually made him the diesel king of Nigeria very, very soon. You will just see how. I tell people all the time that when you travel or you go to great events, you increase the surface area upon which luck lands upon. You actually increase it. You increase the surface area upon which luck lands upon. All right. So that helped him in his package. Another thing about location, he said he had a house. He said the house on Aso Drive cost me $2 million. being in Abuja gave me strategic advantage. Think about it. He said in his industry, right, in the oil and gas industry then, the headquarters of NNPC, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, was in Abuja, is in Abuja. So all the key decisions take place there. The presidency is in Abuja. So normally he will go to Abuja once a month to go and strike deals and come back to Lagos. But he said, for me to be strategic, for me to get the lion's share of this industry, I need to sit in the city where power sits. So what did he do? He bought a house in Lagos. Then he said something very, very powerful. He said, while his competitors will come to Lagos, will come to Abuja, they will stay for a few days and come back to Lagos. He bought a house there and he will stay there for months, having meetings, striking deals, and that exploded his business. So location is critically important. Now, here is another thing about the power of location, and this will bless you a lot. He wanted to have direct access to the NNPC for the distribution of his diesel and his petroleum products. It was sort of like buying from other people who had access to the NNPC. But he said to himself, for me to really be the king of diesel, for me to take over this industry, I've got to be connected to the source. And the person in charge of allocating, of doing the allocation, right, a friend of his introduced him to that person on the phone. So he spoke to the person on the phone and that was it. Then his wife gave birth to their son. I think it's Femi, and he flew to London for the naming ceremony of his son. And then the next day, he had to fly back to Nigeria for business meetings. So he went to Gatwick Airport. The Gatwick Airport is in the UK. He said when he got to the airport, he said he was at the airport. He saw a man walk past him, and he was talking to one of his friends. And then his friend said to him, "Do you know who walked past you?" He said, "Who is that?" He said, "That's the guy that you spoke to on the phone. That is the guy who is in charge of the allocation in the NNPC." He said he ran after the man. He ran after the man. That was in Gatwick Airport. He said, "I met him by chance at Gatwick Airport." He said, "I was going to..." In fact, the man prophesied into his life. That's why I said to people, words are very, very powerful. You know what the man told him? He said, "Femi, you are going to become the king of diesel." And that's not the only prophecy. In fact, MKO Abiola, a presidential aspirant who won the presidential race that was annulled June 12th, told him, always used to call him great man. Great man. You know, I believe in the prophetic power of words, and I'm seeing that in the book as well. He said, the man kept calling him, "You are the king of diesel. You are the king of diesel." He says, soon enough, I started getting the allocation I needed directly from NNPC based on that meeting he had with the man at Gatwick Airport. Now, here's the lesson for you entrepreneurs. You need to travel. You need to travel. I have moved 2 times in my life, and I know how those moves have shaped the trajectory of my life. I used to live in Port Harcourt. Then in 2010, I moved to Lagos with my wife and children. And later on, I moved to England with my wife and children. And Lagos changed my life. Like literally. The life I'm living here today, the starting point was in Lagos. So if you can travel, I tell people all the time that you want to take decisions that are 2-way decisions, not 1-way decisions. If you travel and it doesn't work, you can go back to your base. Make those decisions now. You know, regret is more painful than fear. It is more painful than fear. You don't want to look back at your life and say, you know, I would have made that move to Abuja. I would have made that move to London. I would have made that move. Now I'm too old. I cannot make that move anymore. Wise man once said that when we are young, we look like our parents. When we grow older, we look like our choices and our decisions. All right. Operational grind. He said, I stayed later than anyone else. You know, this guy, his work ethic is insane. But he doesn't work as hard as he used to work. I tell people all the time that to start a rocket, you need to put a lot of work in it. At some point, you leave it will go on its own. When he started his oil and gas business, after he closed in Victoria Island, then he was still living in Ikeja. He will still go to Apapa to ensure that, you know, his products are being loaded into his ship. Sometimes he will stay in the port till 2 a.m. in the morning before he will now go to Ikeja. He outworked his competition. He said, to beat your competitor at Atlas Cove jetties by midnight, I was on standby. So our ship could position itself at the front of the queue. Big lesson there. Big lesson there. I hope you guys are enjoying this book like I'm enjoying this. If you're enjoying this episode of the Paul Fo podcast, here's what you can do for me. Click on the subscribe button, write a comment, share this episode with anybody that you know that you think the episode will be of blessing to the person. All right. And if you want to get any of our products, it's fine. I've started I have 2 products I want to share with you here. I have a product, a community called Sales Factory, where I teach sales and marketing from Monday to Friday. We do a book review. We're going to review this book in my community as well. Click on the link in the show notes to join the community. I've also started an accelerator, an AI accelerator on how to create content and make sales using AI. You can apply to join the accelerator with the link beneath, and you can get my emails every single week for free. All of those things are in the link underneath. So let's continue. He said, I could not be beholden by these unreliable distributors. I met Chief Henry Omorodion. Funny enough, Omorodion's house used to be close to my childhood house, my sister's house in GRA in Warri in Delta State. So I could relate with that, So, the book even brought in a lot of other memories for me, and I thought that was really, really brilliant. I don't want to go into that. So let's get straight into when he was owing these banks a lot of money. Man, he said, I owed Access Bank 25 billion naira. I owed Zenith Bank 75 billion naira. And I owed GT Bank 38 billion naira. He said, AMCON bought everything for 140 billion. I handed the papers over to AMCON and my Bombardier Aviation Global 5,000 jets. Now listen, when this guy was owing all these banks like 200 and something billion, the part that really touched me is, when he started to submit the documents of his properties to these banks. At a point, he had over 150 properties, and we're talking prime properties. We're talking high-end properties. He was giving it to them so that, he could come out of his indebtedness. You see, listen, properties will save you. Invest in property. I'm telling you. Property will save you in your time of need. I am telling you. Another point of this book that made me cry as well was when some of his friends came to him. They wanted him to donate money for a charity. And as at that time, he told his friends, my guys, man, I did owe 200 and something billion in my neck. He couldn't give to the cause. And it was a cause that, in his words, to support God's work. He said he went to his room and he cried. That broke me, man. As a man, have you ever cried? Have you cried because of your business? If you haven't cried, life has not showed you. When life corners you sometimes, you will cry like a baby. This is my story, right? I recently had a situation whereby I needed the help of God so badly. I knelt down on this floor. Nobody was at home. My wife had gone to work. My children had gone to school. And I was crying like a child, asking God to help me. Business is not easy. No, business is not easy. Business has a lot of challenges, all right? But if you are determined, there's nothing that you cannot accomplish. Another thing I learned from this book was Mr. Femi Otedola has very, very high standards. You will see he had very, very high standards. Let's look at how he recruits. How I poached Akin Femiwa from Owando. This guy, he said that he can wait for you for 1 year just to get you. From this book, I also learned that when you are employing talented people, you have to sell yourself to them. It's not them that really need you. You need them. You are the employer. CEOs must look at recruitment like making sales. You are selling yourself, your commodity, which is your company, to a candidate that can take your company to the next level. So you have to paint a picture for that person why they should follow you. Not because you have money to pay them. No. Then he has one test. He calls it the sandwich test. He said when he's employing people and they come to his office for the employment, right? He usually gives them a sandwich to eat. He said if the person comes out of his office and talks about the fact that Oga or the big man, the boss gave me a sandwich to eat, he said that's a deal breaker. He won't employ that person because that person cannot be trusted. They can't keep things to themselves. I'm like, and that's a lesson for all of us here, man. All of us here. Listen to this. If you're working with a billionaire, if you're working with a very wealthy man, you need to be careful what you do. When you're in their presence, there are actions that you should not take when you are in the presence of a king. Yes. And may God grant you and I wisdom to know what to say, what not to say, and how to conduct ourselves in the presence of a king. Some of us have missed opportunities in our lives because of our body language in the presence of greatness. May God grant you wisdom. Let's look at how this guy pays consultants and coaches. He said he doesn't spare when he wants to pay a consultant and a coach to take his business to the next level. At a point, this guy paid a consulting company $13 million when he wanted to buy Geregu power plants, and that saved him a lot of money because he wanted to buy the power plant in Ikeja. But because off the back of the research, they settled for Geregu power plant, and he's happy today. He said we engaged a consulting company for $13 million in research and consulting fees, focusing on acquiring Geregu Power Plant PLC. He said it has paid off handsomely. He has made way more than $13 million, but he paid $13 million for research. When we tell some people, pay coaches, they don't want to hear. I've worked with a company that did over $20 billion in sales. Yes, $20 billion in sales. Sorry, 20 billion naira in sales. The company was so happy they even gave me a property. Now, did they pay me $1 billion? No. But did they make billions? A lot. So if you look at it, the money you pay to a consultant and for research has an asymmetrical relationship. So you pay this little, but you got this much. You pay this little, but you got this much. So if you want to work with me as your coach, all right. I'm going to put a link in the show notes as well to book a coaching call just to have a conversation with me first. Did you get that? All right. Next thing this guy does that I thought was brilliant. He said, I study the financial reports of public companies. I dedicate time to study the financial reports of top companies in the world. You see this guy? He's a reader. Let's talk about generosity and failure. It doesn't mean that he didn't have his challenge. His daughter is DJ Kupi, the great DJ and philanthropist and entrepreneur. She did a show with Davido that flopped. He said it. The show didn't go well. So if you're listening to me right now and you've had a challenge in your business and you gave up, are you all right? Get up, get yourself back up and chase the dreams that God has given to you in your heart. There's something he talked about in dealing with haters. He said, only dead people don't have adversaries. Just continue and believe in yourself and keep following your instincts. Only dead people don't have haters. So if you have haters right now, people that don't like you, people that gossiping you, people that are talking bad about you, don't let that stop you. Don't let that stop you. All right? So the book is loaded. Let me see if I can even get his book list. Hang on a second. He was talking about the books that shaped his life as well. You know, he has read this book, Titans. This is the foremost biography of John D. Rockefeller. He has read this book. He talked about this book. He also talked about there's a book by Bill Gates. I have that book there as well. It talked about books about Bill Gates. He is also a voracious reader himself. Let's talk about even his morning routine. You know, he said he writes down his goals every single time. He has quarterly goals, all right? He writes down his goals. He sleeps for like 7 to 8 hours. Yeah, so those of you who play with your sleep, well, this is a multi-billionaire. He's telling you that it is important that you manage your health. I'm surely going to do a part 2 of this. This episode is just the first of many other episodes that I'm going to do on this book. I mean, think about it. It's a 280-page book. I finished it, but it's so hot in my heart. I just want to share it here. All right. So, yeah, some tiny points that you should go home with as you go. Number 1 is start tiny and organize everything. He said, concentrate on a clear USP, quality, speed, and reliability. Borrow credibility, then sacrifice comfort to buy speed. Borrow credibility, sacrifice comfort to buy speed. Location. For some of you right now, you will need to move. If you don't have the time or the money to relocate, but if you live in a smaller city, ensure that you go to bigger cities for events. All right, because that's where the money is. That's where I go to London like every single month. I don't live in London. I live outside London, but I go to London like every single month. And every time I'm in that city, my mind just opens up. My mind just opens up. He said, outwork the queue, control the bottleneck. He said, when the downside hits, protect your reputation and reset fast. He said, pay for experts, recruit A players, recruit A players. You know, one thing I learned from Otedola from this book is that set very, very high standards. Don't settle. Let me tell you something that happened to me yesterday. I had a particular wristwatch that I had bought in Lagos, and I thought the wristwatch was an original wristwatch. I really liked the watch. So I went to a wristwatch place around where I live to change a battery. The expert, this man has been in the wristwatch business for maybe 30 years. He looked at my watch and said, this watch is not the original of this brand. My past self, I would have still continued wearing that watch. But when I finished reading this book, there was something that rose up in me. I said to myself, powerful, the best or nothing else. I threw that watch away. I threw it away. You know, this is what books do for you. They are like the axe that we use to break the frozen ice within our souls and forces us to dream big and give us a lot of perspectives. I don't know if Mr. Femi Otedola is going to ever listen to this episode of the Powerful Podcast. It would be a dream to actually sit down with him and really interview him off the back of this book. But I've learned so much from this book. I cried reading this book. I laughed reading this book. I discussed with my wife and children reading this book. There's so many things that I learned from just reading this book. And I'm trusting God that God blesses this man more and more, because the wisdom he shared in this book is nothing compared to the money I used to buy the book. I bought this book for £14. £14. But this book is going to make me over 14 million pounds because of the wisdom and the knowledge in this book. And the guy was also a serious deal maker. Let me explain something to you. So he built one of his properties. I think the building where Owando is in Lagos is an iconic building in Lagos. And he called Julius Berger is a premium construction company in Nigeria. I think it's a German company. And as at that time, he wasn't supplying Julius Berger diesel. So they agreed that Julius Berger will build his house and his office building. The guy is so smart. He's a deal maker. Guess what he now said to Julius Berger? He said, you know what? All the diesel that you guys will need in the construction of my house and my office, I am the one, my company is the one that will supply you the diesel. And that was how he began to supply Julius Berger diesel. He was a deal maker. This book is a masterclass. Let me see if I can pull up one more or two more other things in the book before we call this episode a wrap. Oh my God, I don't know what to say, man. The book is such a great book. So I want you to go and get the book for yourself, read it by yourself, and I trust God that He will give you the wisdom. He will give you all the wisdom that you need, to be successful off the back of, reading this book. And all the lessons that I learned in this book is amazing. He said, gentlemen and madam, I am not in a position to help because I have a debt of 220 billion naira around my neck. He said, I told them at that time, my debt was not public knowledge. He said, I laid it on the line, but did not want to be pitied. That was not my style. He said, when they departed, I went to my room and I cried. I was weeping because they had come with what I saw as an appeal from God, and I could not do anything. Bless you, sir. Go and get the book. Hope you enjoyed the episode of the Powerful Podcast. My name is Paul. I'll speak to you soon. Let's go. I don't know what to say. Thank you, Mr. Femi Otedola. God bless you.